Two American cities took completely different paths through deindustrialization's devastation. Detroit lost a quarter of its population in just 10 years, and Cleveland earned the nickname Mistake on the Lake. But Indianapolis did something remarkable. Instead of collapsing, it spread out. January 1st, 1970 marked one of the most audacious political moves in American urban history. Overnight, Indianapolis expanded from 82 square miles to 402 square miles, absorbing nearly every suburb in Marion County. The population jumped from 480,000 to 740,000 residents with a single pen stroke. They called it Unigov, unified government, and it would save Indianapolis from the fate that destroyed so many Rust Belt cities. This isn't just about smart politics, though. It's about how one city refused to accept decline, even when that meant rewriting the rules of what a city could be. Today, Indianapolis ranks as America's 16th largest city, with farmland still sitting within its municipal boundaries and a metropolitan area approaching 2 million people. You can leave and re-enter the city while traveling in a straight line, where suburban sprawl became a survival strategy rather than a death sentence. To understand how Indianapolis avoided collapse, we need to go back to the late 1960s when the writing was already on the wall. Like cities across the industrial Midwest, Indianapolis was bleeding population to the suburbs. From 1950 to 1970, nearly 100,000 new housing units sprouted up in Marion County, most of them outside the city limits. White families fled to the northern suburbs, taking their tax dollars with them. In 1950, 64% of Marion County residents lived in Center Township, the urban core. By the late 1960s, that number was plummeting fast. The city faced a choice that would define its future. It could watch its tax base evaporate like Detroit and Cleveland, or it could do something unprecedented. Enter Richard Lugar, a young Republican mayor with an ambitious vision, and Keith Bullen, the shrewd Marion County Republican Party chairman who would engineer one of the most consequential political coups in American municipal history. The plan was simple in concept, revolutionary in execution. Instead of letting the suburbs drain the city, Indianapolis would absorb them. In 1969, the Indiana General Assembly passed legislation creating Unigov, consolidating the city of Indianapolis with most of Marion County. No voter referendum was held. This was pure political calculation executed with surgical precision. The results were immediate and dramatic. Former Mayor Bart Peterson later explained that they did not see themselves as a big city before Unigov, and one census after Unigov, they were the 8th largest city in the country because their population almost tripled. That transformation changed everything. It changed the way the city looked at itself. The psychological transformation proved as important as the political one. Suddenly, Indianapolis was not a declining Rust Belt city, it was a major American metropolis. Keith Bullen, reflecting on his masterpiece, rejoiced that it was his greatest coup of all time, moving out there and taking in 85,000 Republicans. The electoral math was cold but effective, expanding registered voters from 293,371 to 406,155, while maintaining Republican control. But Unigov was only half the solution. The other half was downtown revitalization, and it centered around an unlikely catalyst, sports. While other cities lost their professional teams, Indianapolis decided to build stadiums before they even had teams to play in them. In 1982, the city issued $47 million in bonds to build the Hoosier Dome downtown. They built a football stadium without a football team, betting that if they built it, someone would come. The total cost reached $80 million, with nearly half covered by donations from the Lilly Foundation and the Cranert Trust. It was a massive gamble that would soon pay off in ways no one could have predicted. On the night of March 28, 1984, Robert Irsay, owner of the Baltimore Colts, made one of the most controversial decisions in sports history. Fearing that Maryland legislators would seize his team through eminent domain, he secretly moved the entire franchise to Indianapolis. 15 Mayflower moving trucks rolled out of Baltimore under cover of darkness, each taking a different route to avoid detection. As each truck crossed from Ohio into Indiana, the Indiana State Police met it with an escort to Indianapolis. Mayor William Hudnut, who had taken over from Lugar in 1976, called March 29, 1984, one of the greatest days in the history of this city. The Colts had arrived, but their new home was chaos. Pete Ward, now the team's chief operating officer, recalls that they did not have phones, they did not have anybody to answer phones, they did not have stationery, they did not know what their address was, and they did not have a copier. It was like starting a franchise from scratch, except they had their players and coaches under contract. The Colts were just the beginning. Indianapolis had discovered something powerful. Sports could be an economic development strategy. In 1979, they founded the Indiana Sports Corporation, the nation's first sports commission dedicated to attracting events. Market Square Arena opened in 1974 for the Indiana Pacers. When the Pan American Games came to Indianapolis in 1987, nearly 40,000 volunteers turned out to help, demonstrating the city's newfound civic pride. The sports strategy was working, but it came with costs that other cities could not afford. Academic research shows that sports-led development strategies typically have minimal economic impact. But Indianapolis was different. They were not just building stadiums, they were rebuilding the psychological foundation of the city. Former Mayor Dick Lugar explained that this made them more ambitious, because they knew that Indianapolis was big league, and that they were on the trail of something that was very important for the interests of our city. The culmination came in February 2012, when Indianapolis hosted Super Bowl 46. The event generated $175.9 million in direct visitor spending. Over the past 40 years, Indianapolis has hosted more than 450 major sporting events. Lucas Oil Stadium opened in 2008 at a cost of $720 million, and it stands as a monument to this strategy. But the Unigov story carries dark chapters. The consolidation was engineered specifically to dilute black voting power in Indianapolis. At the time of Unigov, approximately 87% of black Marion County residents lived in Center Township. The consolidation reduced the proportion of African Americans in the city from 27% to 17% by adding nearly 250,000 white suburban voters. Many black residents called it Unigrab, a deliberate attempt to prevent what former state senator Patrick Chavis described as a takeover of Indianapolis by black residents. The schools were deliberately excluded from consolidation to avoid the specter of racial integration, which organizers knew would have meant instant death for the plan, according to school board president Reverend Landrum Shields. This was not just political maneuvering, it was a calculated effort to maintain white political control while capturing suburban tax revenue. The controversy reveals the complicated legacy of Indianapolis's success story. The city avoided collapse, but at the cost of democratic representation for its black residents. Today, Indianapolis covers 361 square miles and contains something almost unimaginable in urban America: 14,600 acres of farmland within city limits. You can drive from dense urban neighborhoods through suburban subdivisions to actual working farms without ever leaving the city. It is a unique urban to rural transect that reflects how Indianapolis chose sprawl over collapse. The numbers tell the story of this strategy's success and its limitations. The current population of Indianapolis proper is 874,000, making it the 16th largest city in America. The metropolitan area has grown to 1.93 million people and is projected to add nearly 405,000 residents by 2050, a 19.3% increase. In 2024 alone, the 11-county Indianapolis metro area accounted for 60% of Indiana's net growth. But success has brought new challenges. The city's 2025 budget is $1.6 billion, the largest in its history. Infrastructure costs are mounting across the sprawling territory. Driving on roads in need of repair costs each Indianapolis driver $638 per year, and 6% of bridges are rated structurally deficient. The city allocated $363 million for roads, bridges, stormwater, and trails in 2024, with another $246 million budgeted for 2025. The sprawling development pattern that saved Indianapolis from collapse now presents its own problems. As residents become increasingly frustrated with deteriorating roadways and pedestrian safety issues, the city struggles to maintain infrastructure across such a vast territory. The low-density development that made Unigov possible makes efficient infrastructure delivery extremely expensive. Meanwhile, downtown Indianapolis continues to evolve. The single largest construction project in the metropolitan area is Indiana University Health's $4.3 billion academic health center, consolidating 2 hospitals into a massive downtown campus with 864 patient rooms and 50 operating rooms. The $62.5 million Indianapolis Cultural Trail connects downtown neighborhoods, and projects like Circle Center Mall and Victory Field have created new urban amenities. Unigov has been studied but rarely replicated. It stands as the only major post-war city-county consolidation accomplished without a voter referendum. Other cities have tried to copy elements of Indianapolis's sports strategy, but few have had the political will or demographic advantages to pull off something similar. Looking at the broader Rust Belt today, the contrast is stark. Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh have each lost more than 40% of their populations over 4 decades. During the first decade of the 21st century alone, Detroit lost 25.7% of its population, Gary lost 22%, and Cleveland lost 14.5%. These cities became symbols of American industrial decline. Indianapolis chose a different path. Along with Pittsburgh, Columbus, Minneapolis, and Milwaukee, it became one of the Rust Belt winners, economically diversified, growing metro economies that attract educated populations and maintain balanced economic bases. They are no longer manufacturing monocultures, but dynamic urban centers. The fundamental difference is that Indianapolis captured its suburbanization rather than losing to it. While other cities watched their affluent residents flee to independent suburbs, taking tax revenue and political influence with them, Indianapolis absorbed those suburbs and made their fate intertwined with the urban core. This strategy created what might be called distributed urbanism, a city that spread its risks and resources across a much larger geographic area. Instead of the concentrated urban core that defined traditional American cities, Indianapolis became something new, a metropolitan city that encompassed urban, suburban, and rural areas within a single governmental structure. The model isn't perfect. Critics argue that Unigov simply postponed rather than solved urban problems, and that the racial gerrymandering involved was deeply undemocratic. The sprawling development pattern creates ongoing infrastructure challenges and environmental costs. As suburban areas within Marion County have themselves suburbanized further out, the proportion of the metropolitan population living under Unigov has declined from 58% in 1970 back to 43% by 2010. But Indianapolis proved something important about American cities in the post-industrial era. Decline was not inevitable. With political creativity, strategic investment, and sometimes controversial choices, cities could reinvent themselves. The question was not whether to embrace change, but how to shape that change to serve the city's interests. Today, Indianapolis stands as proof that there was more than one way through the crisis of American urbanism. While other cities collapsed inward, Indianapolis chose to spread out, absorbing its suburbs and betting its future on sports, downtown development, and metropolitan governance. It is a strategy that transformed a declining Rust Belt city into a thriving American metropolis, even if that transformation came with costs that are still being calculated today. The story of Indianapolis reminds us that cities are not just places, but political projects, constantly being made and remade by the choices of their leaders and residents. Sometimes survival requires not just adaptation, but wholesale reinvention of what a city can be.